Okay, let's now talk about the behavior that happens in a classroom. In California, we have laws that help special education students if they need help tailoring their behavior to enable them to participate in a learning environment. As a result of this, California law provides that maladaptive behaviors, that is, behaviors that are not appropriate to the situation or environment, that may interfere with the education process, may be addressed through behavior interventions administered in a way that, 1, does not limit the student's physical freedom and social interaction, 2, respects human dignity, personal privacy, and the student's right to placement in the least restrictive educational environment possible. So what does this mean? This means that behavior issues should be addressed through certain mechanisms only, including behavior goals, positive behavior interventions, and very rarely emergency behavior interventions. Let's discuss each one of these. Goals are one important way that behavior may be addressed. For example, if a student demonstrates mild behavior issues, such as getting up or out of his or her seat, or talking aloud, one or more behavior goals could be created to address that need. Behavior goals can also be created for other areas of social or emotional functioning, such as sharing objects, expressing feelings, turning in homework, and other types of activities that can impact the education environment. Behavior services, such as counseling, can be offered to support any behavior goal. Federal and California law requires that if a student's behavior impedes the student's learning or that of other students, the IEP team should consider the use of positive behavioral interventions and supports, called PBIS, and other strategies to address that behavior. While PBIS is not defined in the law that we have, PBIS is essentially a system of evidence-based interventions and supports that are aimed at making certain behaviors less desirable and others more desirable. The focus of PBIS is not just on individual students, but also on the classroom and school as a whole. So what are some examples of positive behavior interventions and supports? Let's say our student, Randy, was given a homework assignment to write a book report. Randy decides that he doesn't want to do this assignment, so instead he starts drawing on his workbook. Since Randy is using drawing to avoid his homework, a teacher could encourage Randy to do the assignment by offering a prize, such as a stamp, if he completes the assignment on time. This would be a positive reinforcement. What would a negative reinforcement look like? Well, the teacher could require each student who doesn't do the assignment to stay in class during recess. Another positive way to achieve a desired behavior is to state what the expectations are for students. For example, let's say Randy has trouble following instructions, such as when students line up for lunch. A positive way to address this issue is to set up a class routine for how to stand up and get in line. For example, a teacher could develop a step-by-step routine with visual cues that all students, including Randy, would follow as they line up for lunch. What would a negative reinforcement look like? Well, a teacher could simply just correct Randy every time he doesn't follow instruction. Since this isn't helping change his behavior or giving him an option as to how to change his behavior, this really wouldn't help Randy very much. These are just two quick examples that illustrate the big picture concept PBIS is trying to accomplish, that students are encouraged to engage in appropriate behaviors in a positive way. When a student exhibits unpredictable, spontaneous behavior which poses clear and present danger of serious physical harm to the student or others, an emergency intervention may be used. However, this is only done if the harm cannot be prevented by less restrictive means. Emergency interventions should not be used as a substitute for other ways to address behavior. In addition, an emergency intervention should not be employed for longer than is necessary to contain the behavior. Emergency interventions should, under no circumstances, include locked seclusion, unless it's in a facility otherwise licensed or permitted by state law to use a locked room, employment of a device, material, or object that simultaneously immobilizes the legs and the arms, unless it's used as an emergency intervention by staff trained in those procedures. An amount of force that is not reasonable and necessary under the circumstances. Parents must be notified within one school day whenever emergency intervention is used. The use of emergency intervention also requires that a behavioral emergency report be immediately completed, and this includes a description of the incident along with details of any injury sustained by the student. Any injury must be checked out by a nurse or doctor. Such report must be forwarded to and reviewed by a designated responsible administrator, who must within 2 days schedule an IEP meeting if the student does not have a behavioral intervention plan in order to review the emergency report and determine if a functional behavioral assessment or an interim plan is needed. If the student does have a behavioral intervention plan, the IEP team has to review the report and determine if changes to the positive behavioral intervention plan are necessary. With that, we will end this unit. In later units, we'll cover in depth some of the topics we spoke about, such as other components of placement and manifestation determinations. In the meantime, here are a few resources for you. You can access our toolkit online and read Chapter 17 on discipline and behavior for more information. If you're in the Los Angeles area, you can also call us for an intake interview if you're having trouble accessing services or if you have more questions about discipline. Well, thanks for joining us, and goodbye for now.